In this video, I'm going to show you how you would set up if a group of musicians wanted to come and record and capture their worship session, but also learn how to use the desk and the board and record into a DAW recording software that is already built into the PC at the Creative Studio. This is probably the hardest setup to achieve in the Creative Studio and probably needs more than one person to really come and facilitate this, just because you've got to do the video capture, but you've also got to think about the audio. If you are someone who has done some home recording before, maybe has used an audio interface and some recording software from home like Logic or Ableton or Pro Tools, then this would be a good chance to grow into this role and take the next step up. However, if you haven't really used any of those things before, I wouldn't recommend jumping into this, as it will be very, very intimidating. I recommend doing some training, looking at some YouTube videos, finding a smaller home studio recording setup for the time being before you jump into this. The other recommendation is that this board here, the X32, is the same board that the Carlton Place Church uses. So if you want to get some practice in, go and use that board over there, as it will massively, massively benefit you when you come and use it here. You will be way more comfortable here using that board, as this desk can seem quite intimidating for people that haven't used a digital board before. Okay, so this section is where we're going to go through how to get the board set up with the recording software, which is already on the PC. So we're recording onto Studio One. You can actually record onto a different recording software. Say if you've got Logic or Pro Tools and you want to record straight onto your laptop, there is a MIDI cable located in the back, and that one will go straight into your PC or your laptop, and you can record the channels in the best way you know how with that software and how that works. So first of all, we're going to turn on the X32, so the on switch is at the back over there. And the first thing we're going to do on the X32 is just make sure that we've got some sound coming through. So we are just going to preset the left and right output, put that at 0 decibels, and then come over here to the different layers. So we've got all our instrument inputs as our over here, and then we're going to come down to not channels 1 to 16, not the 17 to 30, but the aux in and USB ones. And as you can see, we've got a signal coming through because I've got music coming through the PC, which can also be tested with a pair of headphones. Those can either be plugged straight into the board, or you can use their headphone amplifier, which I'll go into in a minute. So the next thing you want to do before you start doing any recording and setting up the Studio One template is that you definitely want to make sure that all the inputs are going out to the computer and to the recording software. So you can double check this by going to routing, and then we've got inputs and we've got local. Local just means that what is already plugged in through the snake in the studio. And then you want to make sure you go over to card, and they are also selected as local. If they're selected as something else, it won't read. It won't read into the recording software. So the next thing you want to do is come over to the PC and find Studio One in the corner here and get this going. So once you come to the login, we're just going to go to New Song, and within the new song we've got some user templates, and we want the X32 Studio One 32 channel template, because the board has 32 inputs that we could potentially use. But this is already set up with the right sample rates and everything that you should need. Now, we don't need to use all 32 channels, of course. In fact, for the recording I did last week, I just deleted some of the channels and just made it look a little bit cleaner. So in the end, the other day, I only used 4 microphones. I used the pickup on an acoustic guitar. I used just a microphone to pick up some of the ambient sound on the guitar. We used keys, and then also we did in fact use Cajon for some of the session as well. So this is the project that I finished up doing the other day. So I just took the channels that I was actually using, deleted the rest, didn't need to use all 32, and then I just named them what instruments they were going to be. And as you can see, this is all the audio that came through from them. The other thing you want to do is over here, you always want to select 2 buttons, and one is on all the track when you're recording it together. You want to select the record button, but then you also want to select the monitor button, so that if you want to play back some of the song to some of the musicians who have been recording, that's what you want to do. It'll send the signal back through the board, back to the musicians. Really, really important that. And then you also want to make sure that you select everything. You select all the tracks, not necessarily the audio tracks here, but all the tracks down the side. Select all of them, and then you're going to hit the record button at the bottom, and that will start recording everything all at once, all your selected tracks. At the moment, the board is already set up with the first 4 inputs being for the SM7B microphones. Now, if you're not sure what the SM7B microphones are, I'll bring you over to them. These are great microphones because they don't pick up a whole lot of room noise, and so they're ideal for these sorts of recordings where you want to minimize some of the echo of the room. They have a really close proximity, and they're just fantastic microphones. Whereas there might be some like performance microphones like a SM58, the kind of round top ones, which will probably pick up a little bit more of the room sound and echo and additional sounds, whereas these are fantastic. So these guys are plugged into the first 4 inputs. So if we come over to the snake, we can see that the snake has a whole bunch of numbered inputs. So the first 4 inputs are what the SM7Bs are going into the desk. Now these SM7Bs don't actually have that much power, so their volume is pretty low. So what we also have to do, this is already set up and left, but we plug it into the Cloudlifter, and what that does is it gives the SM7Bs a bit of a boost in volume. It just increases the amount of decibels we can get out of them and has a nicer signal. So the SM7Bs go into this Cloudlifter, which then go out to the inputs in the snake, which then feed back to the board. So also on the desk, you can see in inputs 7 and 11, we have acoustic guitar and keys and piano. Now, we use this box over here, which if any of you are guitarists, this is basically a DI box, but it has 4 inputs. So you don't have to use just 1/4-inch inputs. You can also use microphones. So if you want to give a microphone a bit for boost, but you plug in your what feed you're getting from your guitar into the back input, and then you would feed that straight back into the snake again. So it's pretty straightforward. It's a really nice, powerful piece of kit. It gives a lot of extra oomph to the instruments. So there's a lot of control, a lot of volume to play with. It's super, super nice. But yeah, so those can stay put for now. The last couple of inputs that I've put through the board, so next to the acoustic guitar input on the 7, there's also another acoustic guitar input, and that is an SM57, which is a nice microphone for picking up some more of the natural sound of the acoustic guitar, as the pickup system from acoustic guitars tends to sound a bit more robotic, doesn't sound as natural. And then also again 13 and 14 on the as you can see on the board, that is for the cajon. So again, there's one microphone that goes in the back of the cajon, which gives it a bit more boom. So with the microphones that are going with the cajon, one of them I would use an SM58 in the back of the cajon to kind of get the boom and the kick from it. At the front you've got another microphone, the SM57. This just picks up some of the snare sound, so it doesn't sound really muddy, has a nice kind of crispy tap sound to it. And that's all I would use for the cajon. So the last thing to know to finish setting up the audio is that you want to supply the musicians with monitor mixes. So typically at your church you would use big wedges for these. In this case we're actually going to be they can bring their own in-ears, or there are some headphones here that they can use, but we're basically going to show you how to do a monitor mix and what this is. So I've assigned buses over here on the right hand side, and buses are great because they're really flexible tools just to customize stuff on the on the board. So if you get a bit more in depth into them, you can use buses to customize whatever basically. But we're going to go over to buses 1 to 8. And if you can see here on the board, you've got the HM800, and this one says 5 to 8, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what this is basically is it's this headphone amplifier up here. So we're going to switch this headphone amplifier on there, and this is what the board sends out to the different monitor mixes over here basically. So if you come back to here, you've got outputs 5 to 8. So if you kind of come back to the headphone amplifier, 5 to 8 would be just be a general mix from that one channel that you have down here, basically. So if I was mixing it to go into the recording software, that would be the headphone output. I could use any one of these as like a general mix to send it on to people. Or if you've just got other people listening that want to listen along with you, that's just your general mix for anyone that wants to use it. So the customization part comes from your output 1, 2, 3, and 4, which has been assigned to these guys over here. So you got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's what lines up with it. So first of all, make sure that none of these are muted, otherwise no one will be able to hear themselves, and that you've got the faders coming up generally. So the reason it's got signal at the moment is because there's still music playing from the computer, so they've still got sound. So bring the sound up just a little bit on the monitors, not too much, otherwise you could end up blowing up people's ears. So in order to mix people's personal monitors, say the person using the headphone output 1, this one here, wanted a little bit more vocal 1, I would select that channel and then I'd hit send on faders. And if you saw there, it changes because now this isn't the mix that's going into the computer. This is the mix of that specific headphone that the musician's listening to. So I can customize what that musician's hearing. So if they want a bit more of vocal 1, I can give them that. Or if they're a guitarist, I can give them a bit more of that. If singer number 4 is being too loud, you can take them down. Just always remember to turn off that send on fader button. Otherwise, you'll just be mixing someone's ears. So that's the easiest way to do it. So what we would do to actually supply a musician with that headphone output is that we would take a headphone extension cable, and if we're going to musician 1, the output 1 that we talked about on here, and we want to give them that feed, then we take the headphone extension cable and we take it all the way over, and it would look something like that basically. So you might need to get a 1/4" jack adapter to go in there to actually fit most in-ears or headphones, or we do have the big canned headphones here which already have a bigger jack, a bigger 1/4" that goes into there, which works. However, they don't look awesome, those big chunky headphones, when you're doing recording, so it looks nicer if you just have the in-ear buds that most musicians use for gigging and stuff.